What's up?
How's it going? So, Specialized, pretty big deal.
Yeah. Weird morning. We've been trying to get our thoughts together on Specialized making a pretty industry-changing move, whether it's being talked about or not. It's going to completely shift our sport over the next couple of years. So, Specialized selling their bikes direct to consumer. Basically, starting today, they just rolled out a package. We're not a Specialized dealer. We deal mostly with Trek as of now. But Specialized rolled out their new program that consumers can go on Specialized website, put a bike in their cart, and have it delivered straight to their house. Here in St. Louis, none of our dealers are on board. I hope that's the case across the country, where other dealers don't undercut each other and kind of steadfast to that. Looks like our Specialized dealers here in St. Louis, at least so far, don't seem to be involved with it. Now, I think Specialized has a plan to have their own trucks and service centers in key markets. I will see how that works. We're a Trek dealer. I think Trek got a really bad reputation, maybe starting 5 years ago or so. And people tried talking us out of picking up Trek when we picked up Trek because of the perceptions of what they were doing to their dealers and not supporting them. With Trek, they started opening up their own corporate stores. People were worried they were buying out small dealers and kind of bullying people into that. Was the warning we got from a lot of folks before we picked up Trek in 2019. I haven't found that to be the case. Trek's been a really great company to work with thus far. However, now seeing Specialized go consumer direct, I really don't put much faith in anybody to have any type of loyalty to the shops.
No.
And the issue with this is, the bike industry for a very long time, and I think that the solution these companies want to tell all their dealers who have stuck by their side for years is that businesses should be restructured, that we should focus more of our business on service, that service should equal 30 to 40% of our sales. I've always thought that was obscenely absurd. And it blew my mind why the bike industry was constantly pushing for us to be more service oriented. I can tell you right now, bike shops cannot survive on service. It's insane to think that that's even possible. Cars, you have your auto repair shops. Those work because everybody has to drive a car. Your car has to get you to work the next day. If something breaks on your car, you take it into the shop. You got to pay whatever they say, or maybe you get a different opinion. But there's standards across the board on what their service prices are. There's standards across parts to the most part. They have a good supply chain of getting parts every day from Napa or whoever it may be. The bicycle industry simply is not set up that way. There's bicycle repairs, aren't anywhere near the price that auto repairs are. The parts that have to be replaced when you do so are not as expensive, and there's no way to make money back on the parts as auto repair shops do. That's why the auto repair shop doesn't let you bring in a muffler or let you bring in parts for them to install, because they have to make those margins on the parts in order to stay open. It's just not as well of a supported network. And so if the bike industry thinks that bike shops are going to be able to operate as service shops, that's like telling a ski shop, well, you guys don't sell skis anymore. You guys just work on skis. Or tell a skate shop, don't sell skateboards. You just work on skateboards, or you just do that.
That's not going to work.
Obscenely silly. And then the other side of it is, and maybe in some markets it's something that's available, but they say the next transition for bike dealers needs to be mobile service. Again, if you're just trying to make money off service, you're not going to make any money. I'd rather go work at McDonald's I can probably make $15 an hour at McDonald's now. I could likely hire on as a manager, probably make 70, 80 grand a year because I know how to run a business. But I would much rather do that than to try to scrape by on pennies. To think that I would drive 30 minutes to a customer, or to think that anybody would drive 30 minutes to a customer's house to work on their bike outside. It's either going to be hot or it's going to be cold. Maybe you're doing it in the back of a cramped van. But what are they going to charge you? $100? So you're going to pay more to have these guys drive your house because they got to cover gas. They got to cover the 30-minute drive. They show up. and your bike's in different shape than because
Mhm.
as a consumer, you're not seeing bikes every day. So when you hear a little ting, 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 ting noise, you don't know what that is. Maybe you think it's something. So then the repair professional shows up.
Mhm.
There's no way he can stock all the parts he needs in his
Mhm.
van. And then so he's making multiple trips.
Mhm.
Your bike's still not getting fixed. It's a weird, ridiculous business plan that also doesn't seem to work. Now, if you're in a town like maybe in Colorado or a big mountain bike destination or a big biking destination of some kind, then maybe that process is something you could do as side cash. But to think anybody's ever going to run a business out of it is insane.
The community here in the Midwest specifically is just not big. It's not meant for that. It's not going to survive here. Traditionally, it used to be that if you really invested as a bike shop in one of these larger premium brands like Specialized, Trek, or Giant, that you didn't have to compete with online retailers for customers. You didn't have to worry about some bigger brand, some bigger companies undercutting you online. You just sold your product, and that was it. Now with Specialized going online, it's a really tough move.
Yeah, and the bike industry's been doing this, right? So we saw 4 or 5 years ago, or maybe a little bit longer. I guess Canyon's been around for maybe over a decade now.
I'm not sure.
But really started getting big within the last 5 years. Common Soul, a host of other online bike brands, that the bikes come in a little bit cheaper, and always the kind of value sold in a Trek or a Specialized, and why these companies are so much larger than Canyon and have all the research and development dollars, because they're selling more bikes because they have local dealers that carry their bikes, that provide input, that customers know that whatever town they're in, there's going to be a local truck dealer to support them. There's all these things that are going to go away with this. So, Specialized is like, oh, we're not cutting out dealers. We're going to give them 75% of their normal margins. Well, that 75% then cuts out bike shops. If the more expensive a bike gets, the lower margins we get. E-bikes, we get super low margins. On the best margins we get are on $500 hybrid bikes, and that's why every shop in the world tries to push a bunch of hybrid bikes. I think it's also silly with shipping prices. Shops typically, they're going to offer one. If you buy a bike from a bike shop, it used to be like lifetime service. Well, if any bike shop's doing that now, you're out of business, because if your only way of making business to survive, now that Specialized is going to undercut all their dealers' service, and your shop used to offer lifetime free service on bikes, where do you make your money? And so, here at my shop, we started with that. I thought that was a good idea. I realized people were just getting really ripped off that way. If a shop's offering you free lifetime service, how well do you think your bike's going to be gone through? Do you think the master mechanic is going to do it? No, he's working on a bike that the shop's actually making money on, that's got expensive parts going onto it. If your bike's going in for that free lifetime service and you're on year 4, the new kid that they built, the 16-year-old kid that's supposed to be building bikes is running through your bike. They're going to do it everything as quickly and fast as possible to get your bike in and out of the stand within 10 to 15 minutes, so we don't lose money. It's not good. We picked up intense early on when I opened up the shop. We had Marin. We were supposed to pick up Giant. There was weirdness that happened there. So we ended up kind of scrambling, picked up Marin bikes. And then I picked up Intense because I obviously saw that Canyon and Common Soul and YT and these online bike brands were doing well. And there was always this stigma because, and for good reason, bike shops were like, hey, if you bought an online bike, we don't know anything about that bike. Not that many people are riding them. We don't know what common issues they might have. And ultimately, we don't have any skin in the game. If you bring your Common Soul in, let's say bike repair here at the shop's $80. My mechanic spends an hour with it. Your bike sits here for a day before he's able to go through it. Then he works on it that day. It sits there for another couple days till you come and pick it up. So for $80, I've had to pay my mechanic, $20 an hour to work on that bike, plus taxes that go along with employment. So let's say that's $30. That I had to do that.
Then storage, keep it in here.
You had to check in the bike. When you checked in the bike, you had to go through it, take 15 minutes, so a few more there. So we're about $40 in just on labor. And then I had to I had to invest in tools. So just kind of a basic bike shop setup for one stand for one mechanic can cost you about $5,000. You're not going to have all the specialty tools. These specialty tools can be anywhere from $200 to $500. Every brand's got different standards. And in order to work on bikes, if you're going to bring your bike into me, I've got to have parts here that are going to be worn out that need to be changed. So in order to ensure that I can actually work on your bike, I have to keep 40 different types of bottom brackets in stock. I have to keep so many different standards of everything in order to make sure I can cover your bike and everybody else's bike. That costs a lot of money. So if you add all that stuff together and average it out over all of our customers over a year, if your bike comes in and it's just an $80 tune, the shop maybe makes $5, $6 on that by the time bills are paid.
It's really not worth their time.
No, it's insane.
It does not make financial sense for us to be doing what we're doing.
Zero sense. Because the mechanic's going to take an hour with that bike.
And if there is something deeper wrong with it that requires some diagnosis, then it's just going to take away that whole margin.
Yeah, and bikes are 6 foot long. So every customer that brings a bike in brings a 6 foot long piece of equipment in that we have to now store for a week. So if we have 10 customers, I've got 10 6 foot long, I got 60 foot of bikes I got to store now. And if you don't pick up your bike for a week, which, is people got stuff going on, blah, blah, blah. So we end up having to store these bikes. It's a mess. I would not, if this industry gets to the point to where we have to rely on service to stay in operation, I'll shut the doors and go work at McDonald's.
Just sell the bike tools to people and let them work on it.
Right. Themselves. And so will everybody else who owns a bike shop. Now, you've got your kind of standout bike shop, some of the bigger places that probably make a lot of money. As a whole, though, guys who own bike shops in your local bike shop, I don't care what it looks like or how big it is or what they say, owning a bike shop is a hobby. I've owned a lot of different businesses in my life and I've made a lot of money. I have not made a dime at my bike shop. I take money from my other businesses in order to supplement this. Why do I do that? Am I an idiot? A little bit. I've had a few head injuries. That happens. But I do it because I was passionate. The shop got open because I wanted to see progressive trails get built in the area because I knew that's what would grow the sport. I knew how much, and in my research on Specialized, kind of making sure I at least had some information to talk about, I stumbled across an article with the president of Specialized a couple of years ago. I think they've switched since. But he did an interview and he talked about his ADHD that him and his son have and how cycling's helped him correct that. I've had traumatic brain injuries. I deal with anxiety. I deal with depression. I deal with a lot of different stuff. When I get out in the woods, when I'm pushing my bike, when I'm pushing my limits, it makes me a better, happier, healthier person. So I wanted to give this thing, especially here in the Midwest 3 years ago, nobody mountain biked. When I went to open the shop, everybody told me it was a terrible idea to name something mountain bike shed. They're like, you're excluding everybody. I'm like, well, I'm not in it to own the biggest bike shop in the world. The only reason why I'm opening this shop is because I want to see more trails get built. I want to build awareness. So we named it specifically Mountain Bike Shed at my own peril, instead of just the bike shed or whatever, to help give that recognition and that branding to mountain biking here in St. Louis, so we could start getting progressive trails. It absolutely worked. And the reason the bike shop came about, because I was sitting in trail building meetings, and we have a really awesome trail building community here that's been at it for a long time. It's built amazing trails that even before we got our more progressive trails, were always my favorite. I go right other place. I couldn't wait to get back to St. Louis. Really nice, well thought out stuff. They do a great job. But there was an issue, and I had been going to GORC meetings for a couple of years, and I hear them talking about all these great ideas. It's so exciting. I'm like, why does everybody think that GORC's not trying to do all this stuff? It's all, they're talking about it nonstop. We're talking about it in every meeting. I was at every meeting for years before I opened the shop. And what I realized, what kind of hit me was, well, what's happening is, the volunteer organization, a nonprofit, is going to cities and saying, can we do this? We want to do this. And the city just thinks, well, hold on. If we agree to this, these people are going to be upset with me. These people are going to, what's in it for us to put mountain bike trails in? All we're going to do is get yelled at more because we did it. Now we have something that has to be maintained all the time. People could get hurt. There's all kinds of liabilities. So here in St. Louis, it was really difficult to get cities on board, even if they were all volunteer trail builds, or volunteer build, no money. They weren't interested. Why?
Yep.
Because there's nothing in it for them.
They're going to have to pay insurance on that property. They're going to have to
Yeah.
maintain it. They're going to have to get it built in the first place, and they're going to have to supervise it. Make sure no one goes crazy there.
Yeah. So my plan, and when I was sitting in those meetings, I thought, this is ridiculous. I said, well, how do you get cities to listen to you? And the idea I came up with was, well, you start generating sales tax dollars. So if you want, that's all cities care about at all is money. How much money can they get? What are they going to spend their money on? That's all your city does is they're just consumed by making money. It's a business. So I knew if I wanted a business like the government to let us have land and let us build trails and do whatever we wanted, I had to come to them and say, hey, I am a sales tax generating business. Here's what I do. If you do this, we're going to make more money for everybody. We're going to create those sales tax dollars. And that brings in a conversation of, Specialized can say all this crap they want about, oh, well, we're, still doing this or that. But the sales tax dollars I generate for the city of Eureka is why they built Eureka Mountain Bike Park, which allowed everybody else in all these other cities and towns in Missouri to buy into the idea that mountain biking was a good idea to invest in their town.
Yep,
So
paying $100,000 in
generating
taxes every year is a big deal.
If we get people that drive in from Chicago, all over the place, that come and buy bikes from us, or they'll buy a few $100 worth of gear passing through on their way down to Bentonville because they don't have a shop that offers as much protection or as much cool stuff as we do. So we generate a ton of sales tax dollars that come from other states and other areas, bring it here to Eureka and pay that sales tax that then pays for parks and more trails and more safety and security for
we're just promoting the local economy. We're trying to make it better. We're trying to help everyone.
Yeah. And I look at this farther than the bike community. It's very obvious to me that if Specialized making this move, now other brands have done it before. Marin started selling bikes direct to consumer over a year and a half ago. They started selling their bikes they started allowing, and we got in trouble for, we weren't allowed over COVID. Nobody had bikes. We had people driving 6, 8, 10 hours to come buy bikes from us. Pissed off we couldn't sell a bike to them. Why couldn't we sell a bike to them and ship it to them? Because Marin said that we weren't allowed to. With all of our bike brands, and calling out Marin directly, all of our bike brands said, you cannot do that. Why? Because these are specialized pieces of equipment. They need to be assembled by a professional in a shop. We need to make sure everything's torqued properly. They need the support. We need to make sure the rider's dialed in on his bike so he's having a good time when he's out there. All these things happen. And I don't even know where I was. I'm so friggin' pissed off about this. I'm so pissed that nobody's talking about the real fallout that's going to come. I have an ability, and why I was able to see my bike shop opening up when everybody told me it was a terrible idea. We didn't have there was only 1,500 people at Mountain Bike here. It's so funny. When I opened it, it was like, there's not enough mountain bikers here to support that. Now, everybody complains that there's too many people at the trails. We need more trails because they're too packed. Or
local trails, like you can't even find a parking spot at Bluffview now, and it used to be abandoned. I mean, it's pretty cool to see what
you can find a piece of mountain bike equipment in any bike shop in St. Louis, other than a set of ergon grips, like one 3 years ago, and now every shop's got knee pads and full face helmets. Yeah, hilarious. But anyhow, so what happens here is, you cut these out and you cut the bike shops out. So there goes all that sales tax, that's being generated. What other retail businesses are left in this world other than a bike shop? Or Walmart, or Target, or big box stores? None. And the reason why bike shops have continued to survive is because cycling is about community. It's about putting on or helping out with those races. It's about having a place where people can come talk bikes. What I don't think these manufacturers are realizing is, you'll continue to sell a few bikes over the next few years. But if bike shops go away, which we will, because we're already not making money, we're doing this because we love it, not because we're getting rich. Every bike shop owner I know has a side hustle. Like they all have a side business that either allows them to live or dumps money in.
You do the bike shop for your passion for the sport as a hobby. You don't do it to get rich.
Yeah. So what happens when the bike shops are gone? Who is going to advocate? Who's going to go to cities and say, this is good for your city to have because it generates what? So a couple of you can go to a restaurant. You stop by a gas station. Sorry, the taxes that a city gets from gas is not very high. restaurants, maybe they get some of this, but I mean, come on. So the city's losing money. So it means they're not going to continue to invest in trails. You don't have anybody advocating for you anymore. You don't have these community events where city leaders get to see big groups of people come into their town. It's over. And are we going to see those effects right now? No. Everything will continue on for the next 3 years. It's 5 years from now when we don't have any trails. And it's super unfortunate for mountain biking. Mountain biking's been the one segment of cycling that's continued to grow over the last few years, and it's growing astronomically. That's all going to stop. I mean, we don't just sell people bikes. It's not like we're just a place where we house a bunch of bikes and then, you say, I want this bike, and we just say, okay, and hand it to you. That's never happened.
It's more of a lifestyle. If you buy an expensive bike, you're probably going to ride that every day. Or almost every day.
Well, you need it to be the right bike.
Yeah.
And even if you know a lot about bikes, it's helpful to have somewhere where you can go in, talk to somebody else who mountain bikes. And again, the sport's not that big. You probably don't know many other people that mountain bike unless you've met them after you started mountain biking. But if you're buying a first bike, maybe you're buying your second bike, we have a billion questions we ask people. Weird, what would seem ridiculous questions. And we fit many people on bikes. We've heard similar people say similar things. We're going to ask you, somebody comes into my shop. First thing I ask them, how tall are you? I need to know kind of what size bike to look at. And then I'm going to ask you, well, where do you see yourself riding? Do you see yourself riding in the subdivision? Are you going to be on gravel? Are you going to do mountain bike trails? And then people will be like, oh, I think I'd like to do mountain biking. That sounds really fun. I have a buddy from high school that mountain bike. It's like, oh, yeah, it's super fun. It's dope. You got trails all over the place. They're growing more and more every day because your local bike shops are supporting such things. And then so they say they want a mountain bike. It's like, okay, well, have you been to any mountain bike trails? And then we start asking about, what does your ride look like? Do you see you crapping through turns and bombing hills? Do you see yourself just kind of going out there chilling and enjoying nature? All those questions are going to help us decide what bike. So then that's going to nail down whether we think you need a more cross country or a full suspension bike. And then we're going to ask you a few more questions. We're going to keep dialing it down until we find the perfect bike for you, or what we think is.
It really paints a picture for us, and then we just connect the dots and get you on the perfect bike for you. It's really cool to see when you have a person who wants to get into a specific type of biking and you're able to get them into exactly the type of biking, the style of bike that's going to suit them the best. Super nice to be able to do that.
Yeah, and we've been doing e-commerce for pretty seriously all through COVID. So within by May of 2020, we've been hitting the internet pretty hard as far as our e-commerce sales go. And of course, we're pretty aggressive on Facebook and here on YouTube. So we get a lot of DMs from people, and they'll ask questions, or they'll say, I'm looking for a bike. And we have to try to go through these things in text. And we can kind of give you a general idea. And I can say probably what bike will be best. But without most of our read and most of our recommendation on bikes for people comes from, we have to watch them. We can tell by the inflection in their voice. We can see how you're moving around, what you're looking at on the bike, what excites you. Those are the super important little things that your bike shop's good at doing and recognizing to make sure you're going to be on the right bike. Because what good does it do, especially if you've never mountain biked before, how the hell you're supposed to go on Specialized website and know whether you need a $500 bike or a $4,000 bike is beyond me.
If you walk in here and tell us what you currently do and what you want to do, we're going to be able to help you decide whether you need an $1,100 entry-level hardtail Trek Roscoe, or if you're going to need a $4,000 enduro bike. There's a lot of expertise that comes from being in a bike shop that you just can't get otherwise.
Yeah, and then we spend solid 2 hours. If you're coming in to buy a bike, I would say at minimum spend an hour and a half with the customer, at very minimum. If we're selling a higher end bike, that time goes up even more because we really get into it. And then once you've decided on the bike, it's like, all right, great. We send that to the back. The mechanic's going to start running through it. He's going to spend it. He's already built that bike once before it got on the floor and made sure it was perfectly dialed. Now he's going to take it in the back. We're going to figure out how tall you are. We're going to figure out how much you weigh. We're going to get that suspension dialed. We're going to do everything to get it set up for you. And then we're going to start talking accessories. None of these bikes come with pedals. None of the mountain bikes come with pedals.
You're not going to be able to go to a showroom floor, see, this is what this type of pedal looks like. This is what this feels like. This is what this feels like. It's just really nice to be able to see and touch the actual items before you buy them. For me, I'm a really hands-on learner, and I like to be able to see and feel the differences. So being able to go into a bike shop and put my hands on a like a pedal with metal spikes versus a pedal with plastic nubs, it's really nice to be able to feel that difference, just see it in person.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And, one of the big things all the brands have always pushed for us is to, after the add-on sales for your bike. So if you come in to buy a bike, there's expectations that we should sell you a certain amount of add-ons. And I, of course, always push my guys to that. We offer a 10% discount after you buy your bike for the next few weeks to give you time to do that. We don't pressure hard. Maybe some of the more corporate shops might do a real hard sell on trying to get a water bottle on, everything you need. But, after we picked out your bike for an hour, we then spend 45 minutes when your bike heads to the back, and Brett's going to work on it. First, we're going to kind of go over creature comfort. We're going to get you some pedals set up. We're going to talk to you about why we like one pedal better than the other. We're going to show you a couple different options. We're going to be like, oh, no, you don't need to spend $120 on that alloy one-up pedal. The $50 one-up pedal is actually going to last longer. So, we can save you money on stuff like that. We're going to take you over to the apparel. We're going to show you what a nice pair of bike shorts looks like. We're going to go into why that's important. These are all things that aren't going to happen when you buy a bike online. And even if they have the text bubble and they have somebody you could call on the phone and you're talking to them, there is no way on the phone that that any bike shop's going to be able to properly explain why you want to get a Troy Lee mountain bike jersey instead of a t-shirt.
Or like when you're sitting on the bike and like just looking at how you sit on the bike, if you need some higher rise bars, if you need to adjust your seat or something, we can see that on the bike and we can very quickly pick up on that. If you're online, no one's going to be able to be like, oh, you need some 50 mil rise bars on there. You need some 40 mil rise bars on there. It's just going to be like, oh, I kind of want it to feel more like this. But at your bike shop, they're really going to be able to see how it's going to work.
Yeah, and we're going to watch you ride your bike. I mean, and that's the thing with the test rides, what's important. Ultimately, if you've got somebody, I'm 6 foot or I'm 5'11" and 3/4. By all accounts, I should ride a large bike. And if I were to call Trek and they say, well, how tall are you? What's your inseam? I would say, well, I'm 5'11" and 3/4. I have a 32.5-inch inseam. Oh, they'd say, oh, well, you're most definitely on a large bike. I've never ridden a large bike in my life. I bought a large bike from Marin last summer. I rode it 3 times, hurt my back so freaking badly. I was like, no, I wanted a medium bike. So that's also the conversations we're going to have in person with you is we're going to kind of feel that out. You're going to get on a medium bike. You're going to get on a large bike. And I'm going to watch you ride it, and I'm going to see, okay, how bent are his elbows? Is his back straight? I'm going to look at all these different things about the positioning of your body, and I'm going to tell you when you come back, I'm going to ask you how it felt. And then I'm going to say, here's what I noticed. All right, why don't you jump on the large? I noticed that maybe your arms were a little bit too bent up on the medium. You looked a little bit cramped. So pay attention to that when you ride the large, and I'll watch you again, and we'll see how it looks. Large, you're too stretched out. And I'm like, well, which one felt better to you? And they'll be like, well, the medium felt better. And it's like, okay, well, here's what I noticed. With the medium was your issue. So what do you think of that? So we're able to kind of walk through where, again, I can't do that on the internet. If you're 5'10", I'm going to say, okay, you on a medium? You're right between a medium and a large bike. How do we decide? I don't know, sir. Maybe just order one. Or what are they going to tell you? To go to your local bike shop and ride one and see which one feels better. Well, guess what? 3 years from now, you're not going to have a local bike shop because, they can say, the industry can say all they want that we need to move to service and that we need to sell more parts and accessories. Parts and accessories you can also buy online and have shipped directly to your house from Amazon. And the fact of the matter is anybody who has a family or wants to, be able to have a roof over their head or whatever it may be, will be out of this business in 3 years because Specialized is the first one to fall. And as soon as Specialized will do this for a couple of months, and then you'll see Trek and Giant follow suit. It's just how it is. Like I said, we had Intense. Intense sold their bikes online, and then they had a deal worked out where somebody could purchase an extra warranty. We got a little cut of it and stuff for credit, which is what Specialized seems to be doing as well. Stupid. And what happened with Intense was, their margins kind of got better kind of towards the end of things. But with Intense, it was fine because I wanted people to feel comfortable knowing we had an online bike brand in the shop, so they could bring their online bike and let us work on it and help them out. Because I do like, you don't have to buy a bike from us. I don't judge anybody if you ride a Giant or you ride a Specialized.
We've all been on beginner bikes. We're all beginners at some point, so we're not going to judge.
Yeah, and we probably won't always sell Trek. So I don't care what bike you're on. If you're a customer that comes in, I want to help you to the best of my abilities. I want, I know if you ride a Specialized, I can still talk to you about gear and how to make that Specialized bike as comfortable as possible for you. But the problem here is that if I lose bike sales, if I lose those kind of little bit bigger hits that make up the difference for us, I can't run a bike shop on selling 5 dudes a jersey. Like that stuff doesn't move that much. We're not Walmart, we don't get to dictate. And that's the other thing here. And what I've seen happen over this last year, and I've not been getting along well with any of my vendors for the last year, because they all seem to have this same thought. They rather just bypass the dealers now and sell directly online. And what they fail to realize is that in the short term, they may gain a little bit of money. But if you don't have a shop that people can walk into and that they can feel the differences between clothing, they can see the differences between pedals and all this, those numbers are going to drop insanely.
If you can't feel the difference between a premium product and an economy product, if you can't feel why there's a $40 difference between a 100% jersey and a Troy Lee jersey, if you can't feel that difference and know the difference in quality, you're not going to be willing to spend more on that nicer product. Yeah.
I mean, is the bike industry going to try to go the same direction as? I mean, look at the skate industry. As soon as everything kind of went online, the skate shops started disappearing, and guess what? You guys don't see anymore. When was the last time you saw a new skate park pop up? Good luck. Go anywhere, try to build a skate park, see if it happens. It won't. Why? Because there's no skate shops.
And the fact of the matter is, competing with online sales is if you don't have the specific size, color, model, build spec, whatever that someone wants in your store, they can just go and order it online. So it really kind of makes it a lot harder on dealers that they have to carry the full lineup of inventory, because if they don't have something that someone wants, that's totally okay. They can just go online and buy it. Previously, they would have to try and find it at a dealer. So it's a little rough. I mean, ultimately, it works out. I guess it works out good for consumers in the short term, immediately. But
that's the problem.
But without dealer support, it's just not.
That's the worrisome part, because I'm not. While I've talked a lot about the damage this does to bike shops, and that this will eventually, that bike shops have been dying off insanely. I didn't open this business. I opened this business with bike shop numbers declining like crazy every day. Like, forget how many they said bike shops closed every day. So I knew going in that all this stuff was going on, and it wasn't about building a business that I was going to retire off of. It was build a business that's going to grow the sport in the way that I want it to, and that I think is possible. But like I look at Intense, and Intense I was able to bring in because there was no other Intense dealers at the time in the Midwest at all. They were all in California or on the coast. Arkansas didn't have Intense dealers. No one had Intense. Maybe there was one shop in Arkansas that had like one Intense bike. So for me, I was like, okay, we can do that. I've only got one competitor. It's the actual brand itself. But I've only got one competitor to deal with. So it made sense for me to bring in a bike that sold online, because I only had to compete against Intense. Now, if Intense had any other dealers in the area, I never would have picked them up, because now I'm competing with all my other local dealers plus Intense, which is insane. Can't win that battle. And what happened with my inventory with Intense, I loved Intense bikes. If you walked into my shop when we were an Intense dealer up until about last year, if you walked into my shop, the first thing I would do is walk you over to our Intense bike. You'd say, I'm here to look at this and that. I'd be like, okay, let me show you Intense real quick. They're really cool. They've got high-end carbon bikes that are cheaper than everybody else, but you're still getting a great value. Now their bikes are right on par with everybody else. They're not cheaper than they used to be. But what happened, because I have to compete with the brand itself to sell bikes, I'm not able to keep a large inventory of their bikes in store. I kept 3 bikes in shop at all times, kind of across the range, just so customers could get a feel for it. Maybe we'd have a couple different size options so they could see what size they would need. And then we would need to order, then we would, every intense bike, I never sold an intense bike from the floor. We let them try out the bikes we had, and then we would order the bike for them, and then it'd be shipped to us, and that's how that worked. And that was fine for a while. And then, of course, once COVID happened, they started going through some restructuring. They had some motocross guys invest in the company, completely changed the way they did business. Absolutely kind of screwed me. We went from 1 year them telling us like, oh, wow, you sold a lot of bikes. That's really great. I can't believe you sold so many of our bikes. We only sold like 30 of them. But that was a big deal for them in 2019. And then 2020 happens. We don't know where footing's going to be as far as people are going to be buying. We didn't know what was going to happen with the economy. So I was like, are people going to be able to afford $4,000 to $6,000 bikes if all these businesses close, or people start dying like crazy because of COVID? Ended up not being the case, and the bike industry was a little bit busy. But anyway, so we held off on ordering bikes at the beginning of 2020. They didn't have bikes in stock anyway. And then they tried to force us into a really large order on their bikes. And I was like, I can't bring in 10-year bikes into my shop. No one's competing with you online. So they went and opened the closest bike shop to me, which now I think maybe they have like 2 or 3 Intense bikes in stock. Intense's website is loaded full of bikes. And it was, again, another thing. It was like,
if you can go to Costco and buy a bike, we just can't compete with Costco. They're going to have
it devalues the product.
It
devalues the product. Like, they're selling a bike cheaper. They're building a cheaper bike to sell at Costco. And it's like, okay, now your crap's junk, dude. Like, now I don't want any part of that, nor does anybody else.
It's no different than a Schwinn sold at Walmart at that point.
Who the hell is buying a $3,500 bike from frickin' Costco? What genius came up with that idea at Intense? Fire him. It's the same thing that with the bike industry. Whoever made this, call it Specialized. It's like, you are an idiot, sir. Like, okay, so you guys are losing a share of sales to online bike companies. You're part of your market share, so you're trying to gain that back, and you're just going to cannibalize yourself. Because this isn't the ski industry. Look at the price of ski stuff. If you're not in a ski town, do you have anywhere where you can buy ski stuff? Maybe one shop. That's how bike shops are going to be. 5 years from now, you're going to have 1 to 2 bike shops in large metropolitan areas. They're going to be these gigantic places, and it's going to be very Walmart-ish kind of service.
I cannot imagine walking into my local bike shop and have it be like Alpine Shop. I mean, Alpine Shop, they're a great shop for ski stuff and all that outdoor stuff, but I cannot imagine my hobby, something that I'm so passionate about, just being dumbed down to that level. It would just not be.
Yeah, most bike shops are small. Like I said, there are some of those bigger chain bike shops. I don't know what their profit margins look like or anything like that. But if you look at a majority of your local bike shops, even if they're in a big space and carry track and big bike brands and have $500,000 of inventory like we do here at the shed, it's there's 3 people that work there, 4 people, 5 people. If you're a huge shop, massive shop, you have 5 people that work at your shop here in the Midwest.
Yeah,
why do you think that is? The money's just not there, and it's unfortunate because it's not a big enough sport. It hasn't grown enough yet, and if you remove the community aspect of cycling, people aren't going to get into riding bikes.
Yeah, like riding bikes with your friends. There's nothing better than that, and if you're not going to go out and have group rides, not going to have trail parties, what's the point in riding a bike?
Yeah, and who's going to support the local trail building organizations? Who's going to promote those events? It just, how are you going to get in contact with people who are going to be interested in trail building? So what happens to the volunteer trail building?
Well, once you lose the bike shop and the community surrounding it, it's going to be a very dark time for the bike industry. So,
well, it sucks for the consumer.
Yeah.
Because that was the other thing with opening my shop. And I sat with, we've got our local mountain bike instructor, our instructor, Jay Thomas of Roots Mountain Biking. Really awesome guy. He's done a ton to help move things along here in St. Louis. And when I was going to start the shop up, I met with him back in 2017. We met at a cool little place called Sarah's here in Eureka. And we were talking, and I had reached out to a lot of different companies previously, and nobody was interested. They were like, that's not going to work. You can't do a mountain bike only shop. That's stupid. And I was like, I can't buy a pair of knee pads anywhere in St. Louis. I can't buy flat pedal shoes. I can't buy a freaking mountain bike helmet. I can't buy mountain bike gloves. I can't buy anything. I used to go to Sports Authority to buy my chamois because nobody had baggy shorts except for Sports Authority.
Yeah.
They're gone now too. But I sat down with Jay and he thought it was a great idea. And he came from the East Coast, he's got downhill background and stuff. He's like, that's awesome. If it wasn't for Jay sitting down, having that lunch with him and him telling me it was a good idea, literally everyone else told me it was the stupidest thing in the world.
Yeah.
People in the bike industry. That, of course, my family and friends all thought it was ridiculous. But, the bike industry even told me, you can't do that. That's
and he's someone who's spent the significant amount of his life working in the bike industry for his career and his hobby and passion. So he's really well respected in the community. And to be able to hear that go ahead, that was really that's a big
Jay
deal.
He's I don't know if I want to say the company he works for, but he is one of our reps for our major parts parts supplier. And that parts supplier, it would be interesting to see what they have to say about it, about all that, what's going on, because our parts supplier is very specific about having a brick and mortar retailer. You have to have a brick and mortar shop. They come check it out. Like, they would not open my shop up, and why me and Jay had to meet for lunch is because I'm trying to figure out, okay, can I make this bike shop thing working? How much am I going to pay for things? How much can I sell for things? What are my bills going to look like? Does all this make sense? Couldn't figure out any of that out until I had signed a lease because nobody would talk to me. The parts suppliers wouldn't talk to me. The bike brands wouldn't talk to me. Nobody would talk to me unless I had a signed lease in my hand. I was like, well, how am I supposed to sign a lease?
Unless I know I have a business.
How much?
What comes first, chicken or the egg?
Yeah. So I had to do that, but I had the confidence to do it after talking to Jay, because I just talked about knee pads. And I was like, dude, I need to, I want to open a shop and I want to have knee pads. Everybody should be wearing knee pads when they're mountain biking, and they need to try different kinds out because everybody's different. And he was like, yeah, people look at me goofy when I show up. And this was 2017, so 5 years ago. Now it seems like a long time. But yeah, people would look at you goofy if you were wearing knee pads. Nobody sold 510s here. And then we start bringing in full face helmets, and everybody's like, oh, what do you need a full face helmet? Now show it to a trail in St. Louis and tell me how many full face helmets you see. And go into any bike shop in St. Louis. I mean, I couldn't even get a fair. I had to drive or you had to go to motorsports places to get goggles and helmets or try anything on. Bike shops did not have full face helmets here in St. Louis. Now every shop's got something, but it's those things. And it's like, okay, if I didn't come along, if the mountain bike shed didn't open, if you're a consumer that walks into a bike shop, you would be under the same thing as me being pissed off, because I used to go to every single bike shop. Anywhere I went, I would go visit bike shops. I always try to find something on bike ride. Can never freaking find it. It used to piss me off so much. They'd say, oh, I'll order it for you. And I went to Southside was my shop. So I looked through the catalog with Southside. We decided what I needed, and I would have them order it. And I would have to wait a little bit longer to get it because the suppliers take longer to get. I could have easily had that conversation with Southside and then said, okay, and then ordered it, had it the next day from Amazon. But I would never do that because I always want to support my shop because I understand the importance. I understand the importance when my bike's making a weird noise. I can't YouTube a video on my hub sounds like this, what's going on. Yeah. I mean, that's freaking ridiculous.
There's no replacement for in-person experience, just real world. So many.
There's sealed cartridge bearing, loose cone. I mean, just in your rear hub alone, how many different parts you need to be able to and how much knowledge you need. You can't just go to your buddy and be like, hey, my bike's making this noise. What is that? Unless he was a bike mechanic that worked for a bike shop for 10 years, he's probably not going to know. I don't care how good of a rider he is or how many times he's built a bike up or whatever it may be. I've owned a bike shop for 5 years. I attended Barnett's Bicycle Institute. I'm in this every single day dealing with it. And I have a mechanic, a master mechanic that is trusted with everything. And that's, you don't have a buddy like that. So your bike's not going to be taken care of. And again, it's going to be like St. Louis. If you don't have bike shops, like my bike shop came in and we kind of changed the conversation. We said, no, people do mountain bike. People do want this crap. People do want full face helmets. People do want knee pads. People do want 160 mil travel bikes. People want full suspension bikes. And everybody said, you don't need a full suspension around here. You don't need this.
And then suddenly everyone's wearing full face helmets, fully padded up, riding enduro bikes down Chubb.
Every freaking bike shop you go to's got 10 full suspension bikes on the floor now. That wasn't the case for it. 1 or 2. You go to like one of the big shops, like Big Shark, Maplewood, something like that. They'd have like 3 or 4 full suspension bikes, maybe. You know what I mean? So it's those things too that you guys have to think about before you buy a bike online, before you buy parts online or from a dude. I watched a thing on Worldwide Cyclery. He put out an article about a year ago about direct to consumer brands. He even called himself because they've got like 3 like local bike shops. He did this when he said local bike shop. I was just like, that is hilarious that he doesn't even consider himself a local bike shop. But anyhow, but if you do all this online purchasing, you're going to lose those people and you're not going to have the ability to go into a shop. Because like with me coming about, it kind of changed the landscape of things. Now all these other shops have that. So
it was expected that if you go into a shop, you're going to have full face helmets, you're going to have knee pads, you're going to have basic biking stuff. So it's really cool to see just spread.
You guys are welcome. And that's what happens when you support a local bike shop. And we got a ton of support. And St. Louis community has been friggin' awesome. And that's the only reason why, A, we're continuing to be here. B, why we were able to get Eureka Mountain Bike Park done. And C, why you see all the other trails happening because our community is so supportive. So I don't know if I'm really talking to the St. Louis community, although I have seen in the last year more and more people, like people who would come in here and talk to me about bikes for 2 to 3 hours. And then a week later show up with the Canyon. And it's like, what do you, if you want to buy a bike online, fine, but don't come into a shop where I have to pay people and I have to pay rent, I have to pay electricity, I have other things that I need to do to try to keep my business running. You know, like I love talking to people, I love talking bikes, so I don't mean to come off too hard with that.
But don't waste your time.
It really is disheartening because, you know, no matter how big a bike shop is, you go into a bike shop, buy a $4,000 bike. We don't make $4,000 on that bike, but we had to, like, I don't know how car lots work. I don't know if they actually own all that inventory or what, but your bike shop, at best, we've got 60 days to either sell something because we have to pay for it in 60 days. So if I get 10 remedies in and they're $4,000 a piece, I have 60 days to pay truck $40,000 for those remedies. You know, so if you come into a bike shop and you buy a $4,000 bike, and maybe it's $500 more than it is the online guide, but that's a big deal to the bike shop. You know, and it's not all profit, but it allows us to pay vendors back and keep this game rolling and rolling for you. And it's the same thing the online bike brands are doing too. And when Marin ran into their problem, because like I said, Specialized isn't the first one to do this. We watched Marin do it, and they didn't sell directly from their website, but they have vendor or the shops that are set up online that they allow to ship bikes to other people. And people get even madder at me. Just do it. Just yawn out. Just let it happen. People expect you to yawn on a podcast. You don't have to swallow it. But like, you know, they sell bikes directly to consumer online, not through Marin, but through a online bike shop. So they do that anyway, and then customers would call me during the pandemic and be like, hey, I want that bike. You're the only guy with that bike. Send it to me. And then Marin calls me up and goes, you can't do that. It's like, well, the consumer's mad at me now because they can go to a different website that doesn't have the bike I have and have any other bike they do have shipped from Marin, shipped to their house, yet they can't ship it to me. Like, but I can't do that. So then what happens? So now is every brand just going to allow every shop to box up a bike and send it? Because if Specialized is going to send bikes directly to consumer, why can't I send my truck bike to somebody in Florida that wants it? I'll have a professional build it.
Times are changing. It's going to be interesting.
All the time.
It'll be really interesting to see how it plays out.
Dude, and I think the sad part too is even when we build bikes for people, like, you know, we charge people $60. They're moving, they're sending a bike to a family member, whatever's happening. We build a bike, we run through it. You know, even if you order a bike, the bike comes from truck, we pull it out of the box, we build it, then we disassemble it again and put it back in the box. So, and then we tell the customer when they ship it, hey, when it gets to you, have your local truck dealer put this back together. Have your local Specialized put this together for you. Have a trained professional put this together so everything's correct. and that has nothing to do with me. I don't make any money on telling them to do that. There's no reason for me to say that, except for the fact of talking about a $4,000 bike with very tight tolerances that, you screw something up, it could mean you break your neck, or it could mean that you don't see another day because something went wrong with your mountain bike.
Yeah, if you cross thread something on your mountain bike or just don't tighten it enough, just miss a couple bolts, it could easily end up with you in the ER. Just there's a million different ways it could happen. Scary
it's
stuff.
silly, and it sucks. And like I said, I know this kind of sounds like this whole, I'm getting a little bit fired up with it. I'm not fired up at the consumers. I'm not fired up at our customers. I'm not fired up for the guy who went and bought a Canyon because it was $1,000 cheaper and he was able to get the exact build he wanted. I'm not mad at him. And I would love for that person to come in and buy a jersey. And if you have a problem with your bike, we're going to take a look at it for as long as we're here. But I can tell you right now that if everybody starts doing that, the bike shop's not going to be here anymore. And that's not, that I think that threat's been thrown around for a long time to try to guilt people into buying bikes.
But now it's like actually kind of happening.
Yeah,
it's,
but no, we're
kind
on
of scary
the precipice.
for sure.
Yeah, we're on the precipice here. And, I think about, okay, well, if everybody's going to be buying bikes online, if I'm not going to have that hour with the customers, we pick out the perfect bike for them and then talk about the gear to make the ride better, because that's ultimately what we do. If somebody buys a $4,000 bike, I'm not trying to add another $500 worth of helmets and gloves and chamois on you, but I am going to spend an hour to tell you about all those things and to show them to you so you can slowly start grabbing those over the next few weeks. If you buy your bike online, even if you pick it up from my shop, I don't have an hour with you to talk about why a full face helmet is important. I don't have an hour with you to talk to you about knee pads and a glove. And maybe people don't want that anymore. I don't buy that, dude. Like, I had to get, where's our computer for the streams? Over here. So I had to get a gaming computer because our streams were super laggy in the beginning, didn't have a good video card. So Black Friday came up. I'm searching through computers. I see all these great deals, 20, 30% off, whatever it may be. I'm reading an article. I mean, I wasted a freaking week researching computers, what video card's good. And then I'm still looking around like, all right, well, these all seem kind of the same. Why is this one $1,000 and this one's $3,000? Well, if you're a gamer, you know why. I have no freaking idea why. I'm not a PC gamer.
Yeah.
So for me, I passed on the deals on Black Friday and I said, okay, I'm going to go to, we only have one computer store left, and this is what the bike shops are going to be. It's so freaking aggravating. I had to drive all the way up to the city. We were kind of out on the outskirts of St. Louis County. I had to drive all the way up to the city, all kinds of crazy traffic. I got to go into this store that's got 400,000 people. I mean, it was packed. This was after Black Friday.
And that whole parking lot area there is no fun either.
Oh, no, it's so many people in there. I could barely find anybody help me. I kind of stood there long enough, and I saw a guy getting on shift and taking off his jacket. I'm like, hey, man, I need just some quick help with a gaming computer for streaming. When you get a second, take your time. I'll look around at other stuff. And then it took 20 minutes before he got back to me. Somebody else grabbed some and stuff. So I got to deal with that. And that's what's going to happen when all you have left of these huge bike shops is you're not going to get service.
You're not going to have someone who's an expert in what you're interested in, just being able to drop everything, walk around the store with you, answer your questions, be your walking encyclopedia. It's really helpful.
And I'm not an idiot. I'm a smart person. I buy millions of dollars in products every year. My dad was a computer guy. I've always grown up around computers.
You just can't be an expert about everything. I mean,
yeah, but there's guys there who I feel like I know what RAM is. I know what memory. I know all these different things. I bought 20 computers in my life. I know I could take a computer apart technically and fix some stuff up if I needed to. These are all things I could do. And that's the same thing people say about bikes. It's like, well, I could build a bike. Well, yeah, I was looking at building a computer on the parts I need, but I decided that it would be a much better spend of my time and my money, go down to Micro Center, find a guy who works there every day, who sees it every day, who talks to customers every day on what their needs are and what he's got. And we were able to walk through, and he pointed me to the perfect computer. We talked about, why that might be the best computer for me, why I might want to upgrade, what the option to the next one is, and what differences I might see. All that information probably is available online. I'm sure I read through it all. None of it made sense to me until with this guy. And he's like, yeah, this is the one you have. I'm like, all right, cool. I asked a couple of follow-up questions just to make sure that he wasn't just pointing me to the easiest one. And he had asked me a couple questions, same as we do in the store. What are you using this for? How often are you going to use it? Blah, blah, blah. Are you going to be doing any video editing? I mean, because that was one question. It's like, are you going to be editing the video? I'm like, no, we just stream. We just throw it out. We don't mess around,
Yep.
And he's like, oh, okay. Because if you were doing editing, then you would need the $2,000 computer. I'm like, oh, I'm not going to do that. He's like, yeah, get $1,000 one then. We do the same thing with mountain bike. I'm not going to sell you a $4,000 enduro bike if you're telling me you want to go ride the gravel trail. I'm going to sell you a $500 bike to ride the trail. So, I think, that needs to be factored in. And I guess I am telling people not to buy online bikes like that. That needs to be factored into your choices. And I'm sorry if you think that we're all just trying to screw you over or whatever it may be. I find this with a lot of things in life. I'm thanks to my brain injuries, I get focused on something. So whether it's your mountain bike park, whether it's opening a bike shop, whether it's growing the sport and doing all these different things. So I see 10 steps ahead, and then I work my way back. I say, okay, here's where I want to be. How do I get there? And then I build towards it. And often, whether it's your mountain bike park, I mean, I think we've all seen the mess that's became in the last year. Why? Because I managed and we did things mostly according to how I wanted to do them, and everything kind of fit into place all the way up until the park opened. And then I was told that I could not promote or operate my business at a city park, and that action would be taken against me if I did that. So I wasn't allowed at the mountain bike park anymore. And of course, everybody's genius idea is, well, maybe you just need to step back and let somebody else take it over or whatever, this and that. Look at the park. The Dole Slalom's been closed since the middle of last summer.
Yeah, it's just not safe to ride.
They spent $250,000 of my tax money, of sales tax money that I generated, to let that place fall to crap.
Yeah, they literally can't have the trail open because people are going to hurt themselves on it. It's so overgrown. If you can't even see the trail,
no, and nobody goes
it's
up there
super. And there's better riding very nearby, just built up.
And why did it fall apart? And why does nobody go there? And why aren't there events there? And why isn't there anything going on? Well, because you don't have a local bike shop involved. Because you don't have somebody who's got a vested interest in creating a community for you. Canyon has zero interest in creating a community for you.
Maybe on Instagram.
Yeah, Common Soul, zero interest in creating a community for you. None of these guys are focused in on you. And if you think that that's fine and that's not worth your extra $300, $400 on a bike, then, good. I don't know where you're going to ride at. I don't know who you're going to ride with 5 years from now, because it's all going to stop. Same as skate parks.
Yeah, we're at a point right here where it either kind of keeps going how it is traditionally, or everything gets completely twisted. And I think we're kind of at the point to see what happens next.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm a creative person. I've opened many different businesses, and I've got business ideas that I always bother the guys with, and that we're always kind of testing out.
Definitely not afraid to think outside the box and go against the grain.
Right. Yeah. It's why we carry one wheel. It's why we carry wild boards. It's why I ride a Trampa. It's why we brought in swim trunks this year. It's why we're looking into boats. It's why we're looking into diversifying. But ultimately, without these big hits of these bikes kind of bailing shops out, these $4 or $5 grand hits where we can kind of rob Peter to pay Paul to keep the game rolling. Good luck. Good luck. We have REI Alpine Shop, Dick's Sporting Goods, but I mean, go if your kid plays hockey, go find your local hockey shop. Where'd that go? I think we all miss those. I would love to have a hockey shop.
They're like, go to Dick's and try and get safely outfitted for a mountain bike trail. So you might be able to find a helmet with MIPS, maybe.
Yeah, and you can buy bikes there, and as smaller retailers disappear, bigger chains will start carrying more products. So you might be able to walk into a shop that's got 20 different brands in it and a bunch of different stuff, and maybe they do invest in having a nice mountain bike corner that's the size of my shop. But you're going to walk in there and you're going to talk to an 18-year-old kid who doesn't ride mountain bikes, because we don't hire people who don't ride mountain bikes. If you don't ride a mountain bike, you can't work here. It's impossible. You're useless to the customers if you don't. And when these big box stores, they have to have bodies to fill those stores. So they're going to hire anybody and everybody. They're not going to know crap about a bike. So even if you do go into one of the few remaining big stores that'll be here in 5 years, and I'm not a fear person. Again, I knew that bike shops were closing down at rapid rates. I knew online bikes were a threat when I opened my shop up. So it's not like, this news comes out and then I'm just like, oh, the sky is falling. This is something I've known about. We've thought a lot about. I've seen other brands do it. And I'm seeing outside of bike brands even, or these other companies we deal with are boxing us out. I mean, it happened with SRAM. Right when we opened the shop back in 2018, they went from, you could not buy a piece of SRAM equipment online prior to 2018, 2017, something like that. Now you can buy it all online. It's all over the place, and it's just completely screwed. And I, for some reason, haven't been able to get SRAM stuff. It just, the effects of buying your bike online, whether you see it or not, whether you think it's just me, whatever it may be, if you buy a bike online, it gets shipped directly to your house. Don't come crying to me 5 years from now when the bikes are twice the price, because here's what's going to happen. It's going to, by Trek and Specialized, they all go to selling their bikes online. Well, why would I buy a Specialized bike for $1,000 more if I can buy a Canyon? Well, I'm going to buy a Canyon. Then I'm going to send my money. And Trek is based out of Waterloo, Wisconsin. JB, the guy who his dad started the company, or his grandpa, I forget which one it is, cares a lot about the bike community. He's constantly reinvesting in it. Specialized too. They're a U.S. company. They're, investing in the community, investing in these local things. Maybe Canyon continues to invest in things, but eventually that's going to fade out. And they're not actually investing in communities. They're going to invest in, what can I put my name on? What pro bike race can I put my name on? It's the same thing like these clothing people are like, whether it's Fox or Troy Lee. They pay a few of the big athletes to put their crap on. But do you think Troy Lee does anything for your local trail? Don't give a shit. Fox doesn't care about your local trails. Shimano doesn't care about your local trails. I know this because I tried reaching out to all of them and getting them out. None of them did. I mean, it's insane. If you don't have these passionate people, then the sports, less people are going to be getting into the sport new. So instead of the sport continuing to grow, it's going to, the lifespan of the shop's going to drop. Where are we at? We're just over an hour. We can end this and I can stop yelling at people. But it'll drop. And then the components are going to get more expensive because they're not selling as many. They're not going to be able to build new factories. Truck's not going to be able to spend the millions or whatever it is on research development. Neither is Specialized. They're going to sell less bikes. So the sport's going to continue to shrink. The parts are going to get more expensive. Bikes are going to get more expensive. So 5 years from now, the bikes are going to be twice as much.
And they're not going to be as cool.
No, because what's SRAM going to do? Like, okay, like you built your bike, your Specialized bike shows up to your house. You put it together. You go for your first ride, and the derailleur goes into the wheel. So you call up SRAM, you're like, yeah, I'd like my warranty address. And they're like, well, that's not a warranty. That's your fault.
You adjusted the derailleur wrong. You didn't set your limit correct.
Yeah, so then you're going to say, well, I didn't do that. Trek sent it to me, and they said it was pre-tuned. Well, so then you're going to call up Trek, and Trek's going to be like, oh, yeah, we did tell you that. So I guess that is our fault. So, and how would they even decide whose fault it is? How do they even decide what part's broken if you're not taking it into a shop, which isn't going to exist? Because I'm sorry, I would love to help everybody out, and we help people out all the time. You come into my shop, we can do a quick adjustment in the stand. We don't charge people for that crap. We just do it because we want to get you back out on the trail having a good time. But if I stop being able to sell $4,000 truck bikes or $700 hybrids, I'm not going to be able to afford to keep a mechanic in the back to take care of your bike when you bring it in. Because I'm sorry, again, $80 for a tune-up for an hour does not sustain a retail store. When I owned a service company, I made sure I was an exterminator. I made sure I made at least $80 an hour. That's what I needed for my service business, which was just me. I didn't have to pay any employees, but that was to cover. And that's the other thing. Taxes are at minimum 15%. So take 15% off. Now that $80, I'm making $65. Take and let's say it only takes him an hour. It's probably going to take him an hour and a half. Take that $20 off for his wages. Now we're down to $45. Take the taxes, which is 7.5% for that. So, it's another $2 on there. But you start adding all these things up. I can't afford for people just to bring their bike in and work on it for $80 and spend an hour and a half with it. That's insane. and it won't happen. And I know bike companies want to try to push this out there to make everybody feel comfortable with buying their bike online, but you're going to lose it. You're going to lose all that support.
So, what happens when your derailleur hanger gets bent and you don't have a $200 tool to straighten it?
Yeah.
No one local is going to have a specialty tool to straighten your derailleur hanger.
No.
Like, you can do a lot of stuff to a bike yourself, but if you need that specialty tool, that bottom bracket tool, that one little thing, for a hardcore enthusiast, it makes sense for them to have that tool on hand. But for the average everyday consumer, they're not going to have the tool or the knowledge to use that tool. And without a bike shop, it's going to be very, very interesting.
Yeah, and what we always used to tell people, and kind of the thing that knowing online bike sales were a thing, and that there was online, Canyon was really coming on strong in 2018. And knowing that was out there, the reason why I still opened my shop is because I knew that I could have the conversation with people and explain the value the shop had, to explain why they need us there for support, to explain the value of our conversations. Because when we talk, I might talk you out of buying a $4,000 bike and getting the $3,000 bike you need. You may think you need an XTR derailleur, and I'm going to say, dude, no, let's get you on an XT. You know, you're just going to save a couple grams by going XTR.
Yep. And then when you crash and break, it's going to be half the price.
So, and that was always my pitch to people in the beginning. If, you know, people were looking at a bike and I'm trying to sell them on something, they're like, okay, well, I was also looking at this Canyon Spectral that's $500 cheaper. What's the difference? Why is your bike more expensive? And then I'd say, okay, well, you're going to save money in the long term, having the support, having people who are investing in your bike, having people who are familiar with your bike model, so we know what to recommend to give you the best experience. You're going to piss a ton of money away not doing it. You're going to piss a ton of money away ordering shirts that don't fit quite properly, or shorts that don't fit properly, or gloves. And if you think for a second that the long-term profitability of buying it, that you don't know if you're a medium or large helmet, so you go on Chain Reaction and order 2 helmets, 1 medium, 1 large, and send the 1 back. It costs $40 for a bike shop to ship a helmet. I don't know if like these bigger companies have better deals than that, but if I ship a helmet, it costs me 40 freaking bucks, basically anywhere in the United States. So if everybody's got to eat $80 on every freaking helmet they sell, how long do you think that's going to last for?
And like, it's even smaller than just like the way a helmet fits. Like, I'm super picky about how material feels against my skin, super sensitive with stuff like that. So if I get something from one brand that's not the material that I thought it was going to be, from a glove, a shirt, or jersey, anything like that, it's just having that in person, being able to touch it, being able to see it, being able to feel it, super important. Just really important to know what you're getting.
Yeah, and I think we're a little bit safer being in the mountain bike field as far as being able to withstand this a little bit longer. And then I totally get, like, okay, yeah, if you're going to buy a hybrid bike, you can, you know, most likely, if it's an 8-speed, whatever it may be, you can buy that online, them ship it to you, you can ride it, you're never going to have an issue. With a mountain bike, you need to see your shop every so often, have things worked on, looked at, stuff like that. So, yeah, I'm freaking pissed. I'm pissed that nobody else is pissed. I'm pissed that everybody else in the industry is not standing up and saying something to Specialized. You know, it's a rising tide lifts all ships, a lowering tide sinks all ships. So when you don't have new component manufacturers getting in the game, when Box stops innovating in their mountain bike division because they don't have dealer support and they're sick of a bunch of people who just bought a bike saying, oh, well, this is messed up. And they're like, what do you mean? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. I mean, the amount of losses component manufacturers are going to take on warranty issues is insane. And I don't know why no one wants to talk about that, you know, or why clothing manufacturers like Choi Lee and Box aren't knocking down the door of Specialized. Be like, the fuck are you doing? What do you think you're doing? How are we going to sell our product just online? How do I know the difference between Choi Lee and 100%?
And it's not like bikes are
brand.
getting more simple and easier to work on. I mean, hydraulic brakes, e-bikes, so much more complication going on. It's
insane.
They're really setting themselves up for failure.
No, and every single company in the bike industry should have an article out like this, or put a post out like this, or put them out and say, hey, everybody, I'll be fine. I can go do whatever I want to do. Trust me, I was able to One day I'll bust out my business plan, let everybody take a look at it, and we'll see that it was perfectly executed all the way through. And everything happened the exact way I thought it would, except for my vendors and stuff being complete uselessness, because then nobody thinks they need dealers anymore. But the fact of the matter is, I'll be fine. I'll make way more money if I get forced out of this bike shop because bike sales have all gone online and we're not seeing foot traffic. We're not being saved by these bigger things being able to help us kind of roll things through. So be it. I'll go make more money doing something else. And there won't be people like me around, the motivated people the passionate, motivated people who can get shit done won't be around to build you a new trail or to kickstart your mountain bike trails.
You're not going to have that advocate for the community who's well respected because they are a business owner, because they bring more than just, they bring tax dollars to the community. They bring a lot to the community. And without that, they're basically, what we're trying to say is bike shops run so much deeper than you think. They're integral to the community. And if you do see bike shops starting to slip or struggle, it's really going to have a direct impact on the biking community at large.
Yeah. Trails will empty out though in a couple of years. So
that'll be nice.
Yeah. You won't have you'll still be riding the same technology bike.
Yeah.
Not 5 years from now, I think it will continue to grow, but then from 5 to 10 years, bikes are done growing. And bikes are kind of an old bit of technology. I just don't see that continuing on. I think everybody will just get e-bikes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to be the transition.
E-bikes are just going to keep getting more refined, lighter, simpler, cheaper.
So, yeah, I think it'll be interesting going back and listening to this and see how aggressive I got. So, again, I'm not trying to attack or people who ride bikes. If you got your bike from YT or whatever, we're not coming after you. We don't care. Those bikes are great. It's just when one of those big dealers starts doing it's a little worrisome, and just want to. Well, yeah, and I'm mad at Specialized. I'm mad at Trek. I'm mad at SRAM. I'm mad at Shimano. I'm mad at anybody who sells Specialized apart. I'm mad at anybody who stocks their stuff in not in a Specialized store. But I'm mad at anybody who is involved with that company who didn't say, do you not realize you're ruining it? We were finally starting to grow again after a big lull through the early 2000s.
They're just ruining it for everyone.
And then they just cut their own freaking legs off.
Not just for them, but everyone else in the bike community.
I'm excited. I get to go back to making money one day soon. That'll be fun. All right. Love you guys. I'm not trying to be mad at you, but if you want to see us stick around, then maybe don't buy a bike.